Tonight, the Turkish invasion of Syria is spreading atrocities of war past the Turkish-Syria border. Kurds protesting Turkey's military operation fear a major escalation as Russia and Syria prepare to enter the fight. Plus,
I just made a great China deal today.
The president and author of The Art of the Deal is touting a break in the U.S.-China trade war.
Impeachment. I never thought I'd see or hear that word.
And the latest in the ongoing impeachment inquiry.
This is the president's flat lying.
As Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden's son steps down from a board of a Chinese company. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The president announces an executive order authorizing sanctions against Turkey. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. The Kurds, former American allies in the war against ISIS, are now relying on Syria, making them beholden to Syria and potentially Russia and Iran.
This comes as President Trump orders the full withdrawal of American troops and as Turkey moves deeper into the northeast Syria with its invasion. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell begins our coverage tonight from Jerusalem.
Turkish forces continued their offensive along a wide area of the Turkish-Syrian border. U.S. officials said the scope of the invasion is larger than they were told. The Turkish invasion is spearheaded by jihadist troops called the Free Syrian Army. They've already committed atrocities, including the execution of these Kurdish soldiers seen in this shocking video and the murder of a prominent Kurdish politician. These jihadists shouted they came to free ISIS prisoners, and hundreds of ISIS supporters have already escaped, including those seen in this video. Some warn the pullout of the U.S. presence will reignite the war against ISIS. All this comes as President Trump ordered the pullout of 1,000 troops from northeast Syria, a move criticized by many of his supporters.
Leaving an ally behind, abandoning people that we frankly told that we were going to be with. Is disheartening, depressing. Frankly, it's weak.
Yet current Defense Secretary Mark Esper said the U.S. wasn't able to stop Turkey.
Turkey committed this action. They decided to make an incursion in northern Syria, despite our protestations, our urgings not to do it.
But many accuse the president of abandoning the U.S.'s #1 ally in the battle against ISIS. The SDF says since the U.S. wouldn't stand with them, they had no choice but to turn to Syrian President Bashar Assad and Russia. Syrian troops are already on their way to the strategic town of Kobani. Syrians celebrated this new alliance, but for the SDF, it was a bitter pill. Yet their choice was either Turkish genocide or submit to an authoritarian government. It also means Syria's ally, Iran, is waiting in the wings to come in. In the meantime, the fighting has left hundreds of thousands of people displaced. This woman said, "I have 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. Where should I go? Where can I go to escape the shelling? Just tell me, Europeans and Arabs, just tell me where to go with my children." In the Kurdish homeland in northern Iraq, aid agencies are preparing to help the refugees. Chris Mitchell, CBN News.
Thank you, Chris. Well, Eric Stakelbeck is the host of The Watchman Show, airing weekly on TBN and the Fox Business Network. And Eric, it's good to see you again.
Good to be with you, John.
Eric, we know that you were in Iraq with the Kurds last month. How do you see all of this? Is America abandoning its allies by withdrawing our forces in Syria?
Yeah, John, I think there's no other way but to see it that way, that we have abandoned the Kurds in Syria. And John, think about it. Look, the Kurds lost at least 10,000 fighters fighting against ISIS, not only on their behalf, but on our behalf, with the help, of course, of American air support. But the Kurds were the tip of the spear on the ground fighting against ISIS, who is obviously a sworn enemy of America. As you mentioned, John, I was with the Iraqi Kurds just last month. That's kind of their cousins across the border there in Syria who are being assaulted right now by the forces of Turkey. But the Iraqi Kurds made clear time and time again that, hey, we want to grow this alliance with America. They were very appreciative of President Trump and his commitment to crushing that ISIS caliphate. Now, John, I'm getting text messages and emails from the Kurds I was with just about 4 weeks ago, the Peshmerga, the Kurdish fighters there, saying, what is happening? What happened to America? Why are you abandoning us? So I think it sets a bad precedent, John, not only for our allies in the region, like the Kurds, like Israel also, but it emboldens our enemies, like Russia, like Bashar al-Assad, like the Iranians, like ISIS. And yes, although he is a NATO member, Recep Erdogan, the president of Turkey, is not a friend of the United States.
Syria, of course, you kind of mentioned this, is working with Russia to protect the Kurds there behind all of this. Eric, talk about how this potentially fuels a much broader Middle East war.
Yeah, Jenna, I think it's a great question. I think it comes down to Iran, to be honest with you, because those U.S. troops there, about 1,000 in all, about 50 or so near the Turkish border, but about 1,000 in all in Syria. President Trump announced just last night he's withdrawing all U.S. troops from Syria. What they did, Jenna, was they kind of provided a buffer between Iran and the Mediterranean, because the Iranian regime's goal is to establish a land corridor stretching from Iran through Iraq, through Syria, through Lebanon, onto the Mediterranean, guess where? At Israel's doorstep. Now, with no U.S. troop presence there, the Iranians have free rein. They can form that corridor, which will allow them to further bolster their presence on Israel's northern borders, not only in Lebanon, but in Syria. And there is this alliance budding as well between Turkey, Iran, and Russia, something to keep an eye on for sure.
Eric, I know from working with you for years and also from watching your show, you see things through a biblical lens. Is this in any way fulfilling biblical prophecy here?
Well, a lot of people, John, are pointing to Ezekiel 38 and 39, the war of Gog and Magog. They see that alliance shaping up between Russia and Iran and Turkey, three nations that seem to be mentioned. We all have different interpretations of biblical prophecy, but Turkey, Russia, Iran seem to be mentioned in that Gog and Magog coalition force, John. And it's so interesting because these nations have historically not been allies. They've actually fought wars against each other in the past. Now, in these interesting times in which we live, we see Russia, Iran, and Turkey coming together at Israel's doorstep.
All right, Eric Stakelbeck, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Eric. Well, the Turkish invasion of Syria is sending shockwaves through the region. According to the UN, more than 100,000 civilians have been displaced since last Wednesday's invasion. In Iraq's Kurdistan region, hundreds of Kurds have staged daily protests in front of the United Nations building. As Syria and Russia prepare to enter the fight, many fear a major escalation. CBN's Operation Blessing will be along the Iraqi-Syrian border, preparing essential aid kits as aid groups in Kurdistan get ready to receive tens of thousands of Syrian refugees. And CBN senior international reporter George Thomas joins us from Erbil in Kurdistan. George, you've been on the ground for only a matter of hours now. What are you seeing?
Well, look, I mean, as Eric mentioned, the shockwaves continue to reverberate a week after the president announced that he was pulling troops out of the northeastern part of Syria. But my sources are telling me that while they have moved from the northeastern part of Syria, they are still in Syria. They're very much still in Syria. They've shifted down south, more southeast. They're still here. They're still in the region. And so, look, it's obviously the calculus, the shape of the topography, the political topography has changed seismically. And, I think in the next few hours, we'll begin to see what this all means. I was getting ready to travel to Syria today, but we were going to go into an area that was controlled by the Syrian Democratic Forces. But then overnight, with this dramatic announcement that the SDF was going to ask help from the Syrian army, backed by the Russians. Suddenly, territory that was controlled by the SDF pretty much since 2012. For the first time, Syrian army troops entered northeast Syria years after much of it being controlled by the SDF.
Hey, George, the U.S. announced a complete withdrawal of American forces in Syria. Does this erase the long, hard-fought fight to defeat ISIS?
It does. It puts that battle in a precarious situation. You know, there are about 11 to 12,000, an estimated 11 to 12,000 ISIS fighters that are in prisons across the northeastern part of Syria. What happens to them? What's the possibility of them breaking free or
all right. It looks like we're having...
Can you hear me?
Yes. George, we lost you for a minute, but we got you now.
That's okay. Yeah. So this is an ongoing battle. Obviously, this is the potential of a resurgent ISIS is very much in the cards, and how the ongoing battle shapes up, whether the Turks, in light of the fact that the SDF has asked for help from the Syrian army backed by Russia, whether the Turks will stop the incursion, the invasion into the northeast part of the country, we'll see in the next 24 hours. But listen, this is the nature of a war zone. The battlefield changes by the minute. As I said, I was about ready to travel into Syria today, but overnight the dramatic news happens, so we'll have to wait and see what happens in the next hours and days ahead.
All right, George, our one request, be safe out there. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, George.
Sure.
Well, coming up, the president announces phase 1 of a new trade deal with China. What that means for the U.S. and the ongoing trade war.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Here, we're committed to a heritage of rigorous scholarship dating back over 1,000 years.
And to a faith tradition dating back 1,000 more.
This is how we create a culture of inquiry where no topic is off limits.
And a culture of hope.
Anything's possible!
It's Christian leadership.
And it's changing the world for the better.
It's higher learning.
It's greater knowing.
It's what makes us whole.
It's what makes us regent.
The president is touting a partial trade deal with China and a temporary truce in the U.S.-China trade war.
We've come to a deal, pretty much subject to getting it written. There's nothing bigger than what we're doing with China, and we've come to a very substantial phase 1 deal.
During an Oval Office meeting with the Chinese vice premier, the president announced phase 1 of a new trade deal. The truce means the U.S. will call off planned tariffs in exchange for China agreeing to buy $50 billion in U.S. agricultural goods. China says the result of ongoing trade talks is progress.
And here with us now is Stephen Moore, a former Trump economic advisor and a distinguished fellow with the Heritage Foundation. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Good to see you.
You too. So what are your thoughts? What do you make of this trade, this phase 1, the good and the bad points?
It is progress, and that, the market's reacting very positively to when President Trump announced this. Everybody would like to see a trade deal done that provides more fairness and more of a level playing field. I'm someone who actually has supported, what Trump is doing in terms of trying to get China to behave itself, because we've been in an abusive trade relationship. But I also feel it's important we start to make progress. This has been going on for 2 years now. So this is a good start. It's not. Look, this isn't going to. You were asking me off the air. How long is this going to last? This is going to be an epic battle that's going to last. Maybe a decade or more. But this is a first step to lowering we're going to lower our tariffs on China. They're going to buy more of our agricultural products. They're going to, buy some more of our manufacturing products. And, they've agreed, whether they follow through it or not is not something we don't know the answer to. They've agreed to stop stealing so much of our technology and our intellectual property. It's a good start. It's a good start.
And that's my question. You just went right into it. Do you think that phase one, I know we're still early on in the process, that it will be enough to stop the theft of American intellectual property?
You never know. I mean, that's the toughest question you could ask me. By the way, I was with the president on Tuesday in the Oval Office, and we spoke for about an hour about the China trade situation. He's frustrated with the Chinese. They need to, step up here and make, more concessions than are in this deal. But it's a good start. It is. Farmers are hurting around the country. This will help our farmers. If on the intellectual property, that's the toughest part, because they may sign a piece of paper and say, yeah, we agree to this. The question is, will they actually do it? And so you're going to need enforcement. You need metrics that they're going to reach. And again, this is phase one. This is going to be a multi-phase effort to try to get a more balanced trade situation with the Chinese.
CNBC is reporting that China wants more talks before this phase one can be agreed upon.
Already they seem to be.
Yeah.
That's this is why it's so tough to negotiate with the Chinese. I mean, this isn't the first time this has happened, right? We had a preliminary trade deal about 6 months ago. And remember, then the Chinese walked that back. So I don't know if this CNBC report is accurate, but it wouldn't be, surprising, because it's just really difficult to get them nailed down. I hope it's wrong, because it's good for China. It's good for the United States to get this done, to move the process forward. I think once they actually get it signed, sealed, and delivered, I think the stock market's going to take off. I think the economy will do wonderfully. It's the one thing that's kind of holding back growth right now.
From America's point of view, what else do you think China needs to do to keep moving the ball forward?
Oh my gosh, I mean, it's still such an unlevel playing field. I mean, their tariffs are still 3 times higher than ours are. They have so many restrictions on America, selling everything from our toothpaste to our blue jeans to our barley and oats and corn, all of this stuff. It's really difficult to penetrate that market, number one. Number two, they have these technology transfer rules that if a company wants to do business in China, you have to give over your technologies and so on. So, this is really the first baby step in a long process to get China to behave itself. I mean, we were all following what's happened with the NBA, where they had this, the Chinese are not honoring human rights. There's no religious liberty in China. They are abusive to their own people. They're looking like they may, march in on Hong Kong. All of those things are the backdrop for this trade deal.
Yeah. Stephen Moore, good to have you.
Thanks to have you guys.
Thank you.
Well, still ahead, why Joe Biden's son is stepping down amid an ongoing impeachment inquiry into President Trump.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com. Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs, from health to entertainment, you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place, from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Check your local listings or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
Well, welcome back. He's not running for office, but he is making a pledge. Hunter Biden, the former VP's son, is vowing to step down from a Chinese company amid President Trump's corruption remarks.
Yeah, Congress is officially back in town as Democrats press forward with their impeachment inquiry. First at bat today, President Trump's former Russia advisor, Fiona Hill, testified to lawmakers behind closed doors. Here is CBN News White House correspondent Ben Kennedy.
Well, John, Jenna Hill resigned as President Trump's top Russia analyst days before the now infamous phone call with Ukraine's president. House Democrats want to know if Trump withheld $400 million in military aid to Ukraine to get them to investigate the Bidens.
Impeachment. I never thought I'd see or hear that word. With regard to me, impeachment.
Addressing evangelical Christians at the Value Voters Summit, President Trump denied he pressured Ukraine to investigate a 2020 political rival.
The text message that I saw from Ambassador Sondland, who's highly respected, was there's no quid pro quo. He said that.
Gordon Sondland is under subpoena and will be asked about those texts with the president. The ambassador to the EU is expected to testify later this week over the objections of the State Department.
Let me say, first of all, I'm delighted that he's coming in. I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say because he's certainly key.
This as Hunter Biden announced he will step down from the board of a Chinese company. He also pledged not to work on behalf of any foreign company if his father is elected commander-in-chief.
No one has indicated of any consequence that anything was done wrong or illegally by me or by my son.
Now today, President Trump renewed his call to unmask the whistleblower and have them testify publicly on Capitol Hill. But House Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff says the whistleblower's testimony may no longer be necessary, given that the White House released the call record, a phone conversation the whistleblower did not hear firsthand. John, Jenna?
Thanks, Ben. Well, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody joins us now to discuss. David, you just heard Hunter Biden saying that if his father, Joe Biden, wins office, he will not sit on any foreign boards. Does this at all move the needle for Joe Biden's campaign?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, they think it might, but really, everybody's dug in at this point. You know, Democrats believe what they want to believe. Republicans believe what they want to believe. I think this was a move by Hunter Biden to say, look, I need to say something. I've been really silent on there. There's been kind of an AWOL sign up with Hunter Biden. Where is he? What's he doing? So we'll find out exactly what he says in this interview. Well, I'm sure we'll have more of a discussion on that tomorrow.
Is this also a concession that the appearance just looked bad? That to have your father serve in government and then also serve on a foreign board?
Yeah, I think the conflict of interest has always been there. But I think in this case, they want to be aggressive here. They want to basically say, look, Hunter Biden, did nothing wrong, and he's going to come out and be forceful about it. That's my guess.
David, on the topic of Syria, Family Research Council President Tony Perkins has a petition out to support Christians and religious freedom in northern Syria. And we are beginning to see the images, you know, a woman stoned to death, people, thousands of people fleeing from their homes. What is it going to take to get President Trump to reverse course here?
Probably a myriad and a flood of those images if they continue to come out. I mean, we've already seen sanctions now going in effect on Turkey from an executive order with the president, and that is just after a few images. What happens when we have 15 to 20 to 25 and into 50 and more images? You know, I think at that point, I think there might be a bit of a reverse course. We'll have to wait and see. But the bottom line is this president doesn't like bad visuals, and I think that's a big part of it. I will say this, that he did say $50 million will go to helping persecuted Christians in Syria for humanitarian assistance, whatever that means. And I really think we need to drill down as to what that $50 million is going to do exactly.
Yeah, David, there's been a lot of backlash on this decision. Do you think he feels like he made a mistake?
No, I don't think he thinks he made a mistake at all, because he keeps talking about endless wars. He had a chance at the Family Research Council on Saturday night to kind of reboot everything. He did not do that. He doubled down, tripled down on it. So no, I mean, Donald Trump believes what he believes. He's 73 years old. He's been saying the same thing about endless wars for 30 years. The problem is it's much more complicated than just getting out of endless wars. And he's on an island on this, for
David,
sure.
real quickly, we have less than a minute left, but can you talk a little bit about this mass shooting video and the reaction to it shown at the president's Mar-a-Lago retreat this past weekend? Yeah, I mean, I watched the whole 3.5 very, very, very disturbing minutes of this. I mean, I would not suggest anybody really watch it. It's real tough to watch. But for folks that don't know, it's just this kind of remade video from The Kingsman, one of the movies out there, where they put Donald Trump's face in the form of this shooter, this killer who goes into a church and starts killing everyone. Well, in this case, the people that he's killing are CNN and MSNBC and Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders. I mean, Hillary Clinton. It is disgusting. It's horrible. And the White House has condemned it. We still need to hear from the president himself about this. I'm sure we will. And if he doesn't, well, that's another black eye for him and his administration.
All right, David, thank you. And we'll be right back.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News.
Well, tonight there is no Columbus Day in Washington, D.C. The District of Columbia, named in part for Christopher Columbus, is temporarily replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. By ditching its namesake, the nation's capital is joining a trend across the U.S.
Well, to some, the Italian navigator rather, who brought America to the attention of Europe, embodies the sins of slavery and the exploitation of Native Americans. The first Columbus Day celebration was back in 1892, at a time when Italians faced religious and ethnic discrimination, and a year after the mass lynching of 11 Italian Americans. The celebration of Italian heritage has remained a national holiday since 1934. The president, in a tweet, wished all Americans Happy Columbus Day.
And whatever you're celebrating today, happy Monday.
Happy Monday. That's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great night.